I am so tired of you.
I thought about you. Everything about you irritates me.
It had been more than a month since peace left Brenda and Caleb's home. By now, everyone in the church has stopped pretending not to notice. The same couple that once came to every Sunday service holding hands, smiling and wearing matching colors now arrived separately and sat far apart. Sometimes, Caleb came early and left before closing prayer. Other times, Brenda stayed behind, sitting alone and staring into space as if her heart was somewhere else. People whispered, sighed and shook their heads, but only two families refused to gossip. Papa Daniel, his wife Mama Ruth, and Elder Jonah with his wife Ngozi. They were old couples who had seen life in different forms. Love, lust, pain and joy. They had watched marriages rise and fall, and they knew deep inside that what was happening to Brenda and Caleb wasn't ordinary. One Sunday after service, as members stood outside chatting and laughing, Papa Daniel walked slowly towards the car park with his walking stick. He turned to his wife and said, Ruth, have you noticed how that young couple no longer sits together? Mama Ruth sighed. Yes, Daniel. Plus the way they look at each other these days, I only see pain. Elder Jonah and his wife, who overheard them, stopped and joined the conversation. We have been praying for them. Something strong is pulling that marriage apart. It is not normal anger at all. They all stood there for a while silent. Finally, Papa Daniel spoke again. We can't just watch. That girl Brenda reminds me of our daughter before she died. I can't bear to see her suffer. Then, let's pray, Mama Ruth said. Not in public, but quietly in our homes. Yes, Elder Jonah agreed. Every night at midnight, we will lift them up in prayer. And so it began. That very night, while most of Obele Street slept, the old couples in two different houses knelt beside their beds. In one house, Papa Daniel held his wife's hand and said, Father, you joined Brenda and Caleb together. Whatever is fighting them, fight it back. In another house, Elder Jonah and his wife prayed, Lord, every evil hand that touched their peace, let it dry up. Let the same love that brought them together return and even stronger. The following Sunday, while the church sang worship songs, Mama Ruth opened her eyes for a moment and looked at Brenda. She was sitting alone again, staring at the floor. Caleb sat 3 rows away, pretending to be busy flipping through his Bible. Mama Ruth's heart broke. She leaned over to her husband and whispered, They have still not reconciled though, so we will not stop praying. Papa Daniel nodded slowly. Don't worry, dear. They will surely settle because love that comes from God can never die completely. It only sleeps. That night, Brenda had a strange dream. She saw herself standing beside a calm river. The water looked peaceful at first, but suddenly 2 small doors floated past her, tied back to back. She tried to reach out and untie them, but the water carried them away quickly. Then suddenly, a man appeared to her and said, Marriage is not always sweet, my daughter. Sometimes it tastes bitter for a while, but bitterness is not the end. It's only a sign that something sweet used to be there. Brenda looked at him, almost crying. I don't even know what went wrong, sir. It's like he suddenly stopped loving me. The man said gently, Love doesn't disappear overnight. Something is fighting your peace, and if you want to overcome it, then start praying. She woke up, and for the first time since this whole thing started happening, she really prayed. At almost the same time in another room, Caleb woke up suddenly, sweating with no idea why. He couldn't remember his dream, but he felt a strange sadness in his chest. Neither of them told the other about it, but both felt something was stirring. Papa Daniel and Elder Jonah's families continued with the intercession prayers. This time, their voices were stronger and their faiths firmer. 1 week later, there was a heavy downpour. Neither of the old men and their wives knew that rain was not ordinary. It came with lightning that cracked across the sky like whips of fire. The gutters overflowed within minutes and the streets turned into rivers. Even the oldest people in the town later said that they haven't seen such a storm. And somewhere far from the town, the river that Onome had visited began to swell. It churned and twisted as if something deep within it was fighting to rise again. At that time, the both families felt a heavy burden to pray for Brenda and Caleb again. And as the both families prayed in their different houses, thunder roared louder and the rain grew fiercer. The river far away began to overflow, carrying branches, broken logs, and everything in its path. Then suddenly something happened. In the middle of the waves, the two doors floated because the clay pot had been destroyed. The river carried the doors and abandoned it by the shore. The flood took over and brought it out to residential space. It was as if the rain knew that its assignment was over, and within 5 minutes it stopped. Then, a wandering local dog saw the doors. It barked before pawing at them. The strings around them became loose completely. The dog sniffed them again and walked away. And somewhere inside their house, Brenda suddenly gasped. She dropped what she was doing and pressed her hand to her chest. "Caleb," she called out. He rushed out from the bedroom. "What is it?" "I don't know," she said, trembling, "but it feels like something heavy just left me." "Left you?" he asked. She quickly nodded. "Yes, like something that was sitting on my heart just got up and went away." He stared at her for a moment, then sighed deeply. "That's strange. I felt the same thing just now. I was in the room and suddenly I felt light. I can't even explain it." For a moment, they just looked at each other. Then Brenda said sweetly, "Caleb, I miss us." He looked at her, his eyes softening for the first time in months. "I missed us too." Brenda began to cry. Caleb moved closer and held her tightly. "I don't know what happened to us," she said, her tears falling. "Neither do I," he whispered, "but I don't ever want to lose you again." "And yes, that thing you were thinking, eh? Help me to add it." By morning, the air was fresh and cool. When Brenda woke up, she looked up, smiled and thanked God. And of course, Caleb joined her. After praying, her eyes were filled with tears. "What happened to us?" she asked again. For a second, they both froze, just looking at each other like two people who had found something they thought was lost forever. Then he sighed deeply. "Brenda, I am sorry. I don't even know what came over me. I have said things I shouldn't have said. I hurt you and I stopped loving you the way you deserve." Tears ran down Brenda's face. She shook her head. "No, Caleb, I should be the one saying sorry. I let pride and anger grow in my heart. I forgot how to love you patiently and I let the devil win." Caleb reached for her hand and held it tightly. "Both of us failed," he said gently, "but I don't want to keep failing. I want our home back and I want this peace to be sustained. I just want you." Brenda started crying again, but this time it wasn't out of pain, it was relief. She leaned into his chest, holding him tightly like she used to. "I want you as well," she whispered. "I just want us." For a long time, they just sat there saying nothing. It was as if heaven itself was smiling. Later that day, the change in their home was clear. For the first time in months, the smell of food filled the air again. When they sat to eat, they still thanked God for bringing them back. They ate, talked and laughed, and every small thing, like the way he reached for water when she coughed, reminded them how much they had missed this. Brenda said, "I don't ever want to go back to that darkness." "You won't," Caleb replied. We will fight for this love every day because we have seen what life looks like without it. Later that evening, they sat in front of their apartment laughing and gisting. Madame Onome watched them and her smile faded immediately. What happened? She asked. This can never be possible. What is going on? I must get to the root of this. The next day, which was on Sunday, Brenda and Caleb dressed for church together. Should we wear blue? Caleb asked, holding up one of his shirts. Brenda turned from the mirror, smiling. Blue? He grinned. You know we haven't worn and co in a long time. She laughed quietly. Then, let's do it. By the time they stepped out of the house, they were both dressed in matching shades of blue. Simple, elegant, and glowing with quiet joy. The neighbors who saw them couldn't help but stare. Is that not Brenda and Caleb? One woman whispered. Is them oh? Another replied. They are wearing matching clothes again. The first woman smiled. Thank God, maybe they have made peace. At church, heads turned when Brenda and Caleb walked in holding hands. They didn't sit apart anymore. They sat side by side, close, peaceful and radiant. Some people who had whispered about their quarrel the previous weeks now smiled and whispered something new. Love has won. On the other side of the church, the both families that interceded for them exchanged a quiet look. They didn't say a word, but both hearts were full of gratitude. They even gave Thanksgiving offering, and it didn't stop there. That evening after church, the two families gathered quietly in Papa Daniel's house. They thanked God together for answering and restoring what no one else could have restored. Meanwhile, back home, Brenda and Caleb were in the sitting room enjoying themselves. Do you know that it feels like we are starting all over again? Brenda said, smiling. Caleb laughed. Then, let's start well this time. They both smiled with their eyes meeting in a way that spoke louder than words. The next morning, they went to work together and Madame Onome saw them through her window. The joy on their faces pricked something inside her chest. Later that day, Anthony came to her shop, but his mood was different. He just sat quietly scrolling through his phone. Anthony, this one you are quiet. Is something wrong? She asked. He looked up briefly. Nothing, he replied flatly. Have I done something wrong again? He sighed and dropped his phone. Onome, I have been thinking lately that I'm not getting any younger. She frowned slightly. We both know that, and that's why I keep asking when we are doing our introduction. He hesitated, then he said, That's the thing. I don't think we should go on. Onome froze. Go on? What do you mean by that? I mean, he said slowly, I don't think marriage is for us. You are older than I am, and I just don't see it working anymore. Onome blinked, her voice shaking. Anthony, you knew my age before you started with me. Why are you saying this now? He avoided her eyes. Things have changed. She stood up quickly, her heart pounding. So you want to throw everything away? After all your promises? Anthony picked up his phone again, refusing to meet her eyes. It is better we end it now than later. And just like that, he left. Onome stood in her shop doorway watching as he walked away. She cried, crowed and crowed, if that makes any sense. After that day, things began to go downhill very fast. Customers who used to rush to her shop started going elsewhere. Thieves broke into her shop at night twice, taking her goods and cash. It felt as if something was draining her luck. She grew restless, snapping at people and losing her sleep. Meanwhile, Brenda and Caleb's joy kept on growing. Sometimes when Brenda greeted Onome warmly saying, Good morning, ma, Onome could barely reply. She would force a smile and shut her door quickly, feeling her heart twist. One morning, she woke up sick. Her body ached, Her head dropped and her legs felt very weak. She went to the hospital, but the doctor said, "We can't find anything wrong, ma. You just need to rest." But rest didn't help. Each day she grew weaker. Her business slowed down until she could barely open her shop. By the third week, she was too tired to stand for long. She sat on her bed one night with tears rolling down her cheeks. She whispered, "What did I do to deserve all this?" But deep in her heart, she knew. She remembered that night in the forest. She remembered the Dibia's warning. Whoever unties what heaven tied must pay the price. The next morning, Onome gathered the little strength she had left and decided to go back to Okunta's grove. She thought maybe she could beg the Dibia to reverse whatever was happening. But when she reached the shrine, her heart dropped. The hut was empty. The small idol was broken. The floor was covered with leaves and dust. She stood there calling, "Baba Okunta, are you there? Please, I need help. I have lost everything. My love, my business, my peace, and even my sleep. Please undo what you did." No one answered. Just then, a farmer passing by stopped and said, "Are you looking for the old Dibia?" "Yes," she said quickly. "Where is he?" The man shook his head slowly. "So, you didn't hear? The man don't die now. A snake beat him in his sleep." Onome's knees gave way. She fell to the ground, staring at the ruined shrine. The Dibia was gone. Her last hope was gone. The man walked away, leaving her there, alone, shaking and broken. For a long time, she sat in silence with tears dripping onto the dry soil. The place was quiet, but it wasn't peaceful. It felt heavy, as if someone was watching her. When she finally stood up, her legs wobbled. She whispered, "I didn't mean to destroy anyone. I just wanted to be happy." She got tired and then told herself it was time to go home. Halfway down the path, she heard a sudden hiss from the bush. A dark snake slithered across the path. It passed right in front of her and disappeared into the grass, leaving her trembling. She didn't know what it meant, but fear gripped her heart like a cold hand. She ran for her dear life, and when she finally reached the main road, she was drenched in sweat. The days that followed were the hardest in Madame Onome's life. Her once vibrant shop was now a thing of the past. Bills piled up on her table. Rent, electricity, and debt to suppliers. When she picked up her phone, it wasn't to take orders anymore. It was to beg for extensions, for understanding, and for time. Soon, she fell sick again. This time, it was so serious. Her hands shook, her appetite disappeared, and her body felt heavy. When she went back to the hospital, the doctor frowned after checking her. "Madam, your blood pressure is dangerously high. You need rest, good food, and peace of mind." She laughed bitterly. "Peace of mind? Please, where can I buy that?" The doctor didn't answer. He just wrote her some drugs and handed them over. But even the medicine didn't help. Her health kept on failing. She began to see her younger self, smiling, her shop full and her life bright. Now, everything felt far away. She whispered to herself, "I thought hurting others would make me happy, and I also thought that taking their peace would bring me peace." Tears rolled down her face. "But now I know," she continued, "that peace doesn't live in another person's pain." The days turned into weeks, and her life continued to crumble piece by piece. The landlord had come that morning with two men with a folded paper in his hand. "Madame Onome," he said coldly, "you are 3 months behind your rent." "I will pay, sir. Please just give me time," she pleaded. "Time had passed," the man replied. "I I'm sorry, but business is business. Before she could speak again, the two men began removing her things. It was still Caleb and Brenda that paid because her health condition had actually deteriorated so badly, and that was like heaping coals of fire on her head. She cried and then she confessed to them. I don't know how you two came back, but I can tell you for free that this is only what the finger of God can do. So hold him tight and never play with your God because he is too good. Caleb and Brenda were disappointed. In fact, Caleb wanted to collect his money back, but then Brenda pleaded. She said, if not for the mercies of God, we would have remained enemies for life. So let the rent be a seed that will provoke more of God's judgment upon her. Days later, the neighbors noticed that she didn't come out at all. They knocked on the door for several times. She didn't answer or make any sound, and so they were forced to break the door only to find her body lifeless. A Bible was opened beside her, and her fingers rested on a verse in Psalms that said, "A broken and contrite heart, O God, thou will not despise." Madam Ruth, one of the oldest neighbors, wept bitterly, and then she said, let this be a lesson to everyone. He who casts pain into the river for others shall one day drink from it himself. Hey, African Tales by Karma Tribe, how are you all doing? For me, I am doing just fine. I hope you learned one or two things from this story. Before I leave today, I would like to say this. Brenda and Caleb's marriage was built on laughter, friendship, and togetherness. But you see, love alone is never enough to sustain peace. Their first mistake was relaxing in comfort and forgetting the altar of prayer. The second mistake was letting a stranger's voice enter their marriage. We all know that the termite that eats the wood lives inside the wood. Brenda was busy confiding in Madame Onome, not knowing that she was the very knife cutting their bond. Let this one sink. Not every ear that listens to you loves you. Some people only draw close just to know the exact place to strike. Thank God grace found them and they didn't end where they fell. But I want you to know, my dear Karma Tribe, that not every problem is ordinary. Sometimes, what looks like a simple quarrel is something deeper, spiritual, and unseen. When your peaceful home suddenly becomes noisy, when love turns cold without any plausible reason, when everything that used to bring you joy begins to make you angry, please don't rush to blame your partner or yourself. Run to God first, because those things might just be invisible battles that only prayer can win. And as for Madame Onome, her story teaches us that envy is like drinking poison and expecting another person to die. My people will always say, the hand that throws a stone into a river must be ready for the splash. On this note, I sign out from today's story, but please tell me, who was your favorite character in this story? Was it Brenda, Caleb, or was it the two elderly couples who interceded for them? Kindly tell me in the comments. Don't forget to share the story and give it a thumbs up. If you have not subscribed to this channel, what are you waiting for? Kindly punch the subscribe button so that you can join the Karma Tribe. And until I bring the next interesting story your way, it's a goodbye from here and God bless you.